Welcome to the Monday stream. Hope everyone's having an awesome Monday morning. Let me go ahead and... All right. Hey, Dark Knight, how's it going? Let me just close this real quick. Rest in PTTV ad block. No, let the drama continue. Five ads. Monday is complete. Wait, what? I'm confused. Hey, Tigzeek. But that music was inspiring. I like that music. It's like one of the very few it's like one of the very few DMCA free music that I like. Why is Keanu Reeves selling Cyberpunk? Because he is Cyberpunk. Is he not? Isn't he like in the game? Oh, wait a minute. Hold on, folks. I think that the reason why you guys saw ads despite the ad blocker is because I'm running mid-roll ads at the beginning and in the middle of the stream to stop pre-roll ads. So those of you that came in afterwards should not be seeing any type of ads for the next 30 minutes. So if I do it twice, at least half of the stream is going to be ad free. So I think like a couple of minutes for 50% of the stream to be ad free is like a worthy sacrifice. And I tested this out and it's absolutely true. You will not get any pre-roll ads for the next 30 minutes or whatever. If you close out the stream and you go back in, you shouldn't theoretically see any ads. Hey Erda, how's it going? So what did they do to TTV ad block? Did they stop that one too? True. Wait a minute. Bezos bucks. Alright, I think that's much better. For a second there, I thought my my microphone was a little bit too low there. Okay. It shows a little screen telling you to turn off your ad block every 5 minutes now? No. Jeez. That Bezos bucks, that's right. Those sweet pennies that they give us. I want them all. For real, they definitely have to figure out what they're gonna do with this ad stuff because it's really ridiculous at this point. And I hear it all the time. I hear it all the time in the Reddit posts about Twitch. Oh man, people are mad about the way they run ads, and it's kind of true because it's really annoying, to be quite honest. Hey Larry Weird, but that music remain of tales of people to struggle against evil and tribulation of life. My favorite kind of story, like a tale of war that hates war. The Lord of the Rings. Ooh, I need to complete that series. I think I've read. We went through The Hobbit, and now I think we did the first book. Hmm. They think that saying the same ad 5 million times is going to get me to buy their gum. No, I think it's really ridiculous. It's just like there should be a if you're gonna run ads, there should be like a system to make it first of all not disturb the content because I literally like make sure to play it at the beginning when the screen is still going on. Um, and they should probably make it a little bit more, at least more appealing in terms of how they serve these ads. Because, like, imagine if they did like a system where it doesn't disrupt the content and you can have skippable ads. You can have skippable ads and they're a little bit more tailored. Kind of like YouTube. You need a Tolkien expert? Nice. Hey, Kevin San. Is it Sanjuko? I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, so I apologize. Hope you're doing alright. YouTube, YouTube had that. Just a smidgen, friend. Just a smidgen. Oh, it's Hmm. Nice. You're just visiting us via YouTube. Yeah, by the way, for those of you that haven't already, you all should subscribe to the YouTube channel because if all Twitch goes to heck, if all Twitch just goes away, I still have my YouTube channel. Yeah, and I think Adblocker works on YouTube, right? What ads? How come some YouTube videos have a lot more ad breaks than others? Because content creators put an ad break every 5 seconds sometimes. Like what I would do is probably I would probably do one like at the beginning and maybe at the end. I was checking out library yesterday. It's like BitChute but with less Nazis. What? There is such a thing, library. So sometimes it is up to the content creator. If they're partnered with YouTube, then they get to choose when their ads go on. But if they're not partnered with YouTube, that might just be YouTube throwing in random ads. Oh. So wait a minute. Library does to publishing what Bitcoin did to money. Join download for Windows. Enjoy the latest content from your favorite as usual, not a product. Wait, so this is like an app that syncs with YouTube? Is that the thing? Is that the idea? It looks like an app that syncs with YouTube. Hey, Common Buddhist, I see you have the Majority Report David Pakman set piece. Yes, except this one is actually superior. Okay? This one is actually superior by all means. By all the metrics, this one is clearly superior. I think it automatically mirrors your YouTube videos. Huh. Interesting. Interesting. So it's like a better YouTube. It's like what YouTube should be, right? I hate ads in the middle of a song, but then I love songs. It's scary how short a familiar song that close to you it seems to me these days. Yeah. So what I would say is just simple. You gotta solve this like ad issue, because like I get that, you know, ad revenue is important to some of these companies, but they shouldn't be like this ridiculous. I think the most ridiculous ad program, I guess I should say, is probably it's probably Twitch. I mean, jeez. I forgot to put on my little lights. Oof. Hold on, Yoshi. You gotta give me a second. There we go. I'm gonna go out on a limb here, but I hate the Majority Report background. Whoa. Like what you've done, I mean, on their show. Yeah, they're multicolors. I don't know. The multicolor stuff kind of like... eh. Like I said, my background is superior by all objective measures. They're all it's superior. It's so 70s. Well, I mean, exactly. That is the official story. That is the official story. Sam Cedar actually stole it from me, and I will stick to that. You are in stereo? Oh shoot, am I? Huh. I didn't tell it to. It says mono. But I hope it sounds okay. Welcome to the stream, Larry Beckham. So that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna stick to that story. That is the origin story from now on. The origin story of this, the oranges of this story is that actually the Majority Report stole this from me. Back to Twitch. Oh, okay. The delay is a half a second less. Interesting. Oh man. Bright and early. TYTND TDR much better produced than oh, the Majority, but that's my layman's opinion. Well, I mean, DYT has, I believe, most likely, probably, a much larger, you know, budget. Okay, so I was streaming on Twitch and YouTube, and then I unzipped my phone. Oh man. Okay, so yeah, that's the problem with YouTube. Sometimes it comes out as just regular names, but because my regular name sometimes comes up on YouTube as well. But I've since remedied that. Well, if it makes you feel better, there's a lot of friends around here, okay? And if it also makes you feel better, I'm about to nuke all of these things. Hey, Vanilla Bean. Jenk has more money because he exploits his workers. Yeah, I've heard some stuff about that. Didn't they try to like unionize, and there was a lot of, nonsense going on because of that? Like they were trying to unionize and they weren't letting them, or something like that. I don't remember this story. What was I doing? Ah, yes. I'm really worried about my mom. I think she might have cancer. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that, my friend. To be quite honest, I feel that this week we get results for my father as well, and hopefully it's nothing. We'll see. Oh shoot. I'd be a terrible I would be a terrible cyber criminal. Good thing I never do anything against contract law. Okay, why aren't you showing me this? Hello? I'm trying to make sure I can get my step 1. Mom's gonna get an appointment today to be checked. Well, good luck. Good luck and hope it's nothing serious. Because that's kind of where we... Okay, so basically, we've been going back and forth every 6 months to make sure that whatever they found isn't exactly problematic. But yeah. So this Thursday, we're gonna get more results. The love of my life, the mother of my children died almost 2 years ago because of the big C. Sorry to hear that, Larry. Weird. Jeez. That's a rough one. So anything about the Tillis bill? We have not seen anything about the Tillis bill. I don't think it passed. But we can Google that. So far, it seems like it didn't pass. I don't see any news regarding it passing. So I'm gonna go ahead and say that it probably failed. Hey, Dustin. I thought this was the C week, but I thought that meant Christmas. No. Hugs for everybody. Yes, virtual hugs for everybody. True. Alright, folks, we do have a, we do have a couple of headlines to go over. 600 better fail, needs to be 2,000 a month. Yeah, but I mean, the alternative would be nothing, right? So, yeah, I know it's like basically an insult. It's basically an insult, but it's still the alternative would be nothing. So yeah, of course I would take it. What was the number of Tillis' bill? That's a good question. Hold on, folks. It doesn't say. Jesus, it's been 22 years since the DMCA copy. God, I hate these pop-ups. Come on. Jesus. It hasn't been edited since 22 years ago. Jeez. What is the name of this bill? Why is this so hard? The Protecting Lawful Streaming Act. Okay, sure. Nice meme. The Protecting Lawful Streaming Act would only apply to commercial for-profit streaming piracy services. The law would not sweep in normal practices by online service providers, good faith business disputes, non-commercial activities, or in any way impact individuals who access pirated streams or unwillingly streamed unauthorized copies of copyright works. Individuals who might use pirate streaming service will not be affected. What? The bipartisan consensus legislation will provide the Department of Justice with the authority to bring felony charges against a digital transmission service that is primarily designed or provided for the purpose of streaming copy. Oh, so you have to prove intent that you're actually doing this to stream copyrighted material, right? Hey, Kaz, how's it going? Hey, Stupka. Hey, Patient Sloth. Oh my goodness. So many friendly faces. Hey, Memius. Yeah, no kidding, Vanilla Beans. Had a clip on Sanders holding forth on that a little too late bill speaking yesterday. I appreciate the compliment. Well, of course, all of you guys are friendly faces. That's right. Hey, Alio, how's it going? I do have some good news. My right eye is almost fully healed. Nice. Can you raid they Mercify when you're finished? They're raising money to free healthcare in the UK for trans kids. Sure. Because the NHS, ooh, yikes. I also have good news. My kid and I both tested negative. Nice. Stereo vision. Ooh, ouch. Vanilla bean. I appreciate that, Kesmox. So we have stereo sound and stereo vision, is that it? Yeah, absolutely. I have no problems doing that. Of course, it's for a good cause. It is primarily designed to provide for the purpose streaming copyrighted works without the authority of the copyright owner. Has no commercially significant purpose other than to stream. Yeah, but see, here's what it is. Has no commercially significant purpose or use other than to stream copyrighted works without the authority of the copyright owner or the law. So, in other words, you have to prove that the only thing that you were doing, like your intent, for example, the intent of the stream would be to play copyrighted music for 3 hours, right? You have to prove that intent. So I don't know how that one's gonna work out. But I see how this could be problematic. The shift towards streaming content has resulted in criminal streaming services illegally distributing copyright material that costs the U.S. economy. The U.S. economy? Do you mean the predatory record companies? Nearly $30 billion each year and discourages the production of creative content. No. Oh, no, no, no. That's not how that works. What? Imagine, oh, Jesus. Imagine thinking that, that streaming, by the way, using fair use, another person's like art in a fair use way. I'm not saying just to outright just stream a bunch of copyrighted music, but I'm saying if you're using it in a fair use manner, how is that discouraging the production of creative content? Exactly how is that? That doesn't even make sense. That doesn't even make sense. So you think the bill didn't pass at all? No, I don't think so. I have good news too. Section 8 reviewed my income and medical expenses and knock $100 off my rent. Nice! One person stole art from me once and used it as an avatar on my Twitter without my asking. Yeah, you see, like, when you do things like that, and you should probably say, like, hey, listen, I'm the owner of this art, you gotta give some credit. You gotta give some credit where credit is due, right? So if I use something, even if I'm using it in a fair use manner, even if I'm using it in a fair use manner, I always give shout outs to the artist. I mean, I don't understand, like, what is the problem here. I had to delete 2 streams for 16 minutes of accidental music, Christmas melodies. I think Twitch wants me to edit it, but I deleted it. What I would say, Alio, is just simply use, if you have access to Spotify, use Stream Beats. It's completely DMCA free. Hey, activate Windows. What is your favorite truck? Mine is a 2013 Isuzu NPR. NPR 300 Crew. I generally speaking don't like trucks. I would, however, be completely okay with like a Jeep. Now, Jeep is coming out with a electric hybrid Jeep, so that's pretty exciting. Have you heard that they did a sustained test of a simple network of computers using quantum entanglement? That means that future communications will be impossible to intercept. Huh. Interesting. Interesting on the science end. Technological end, I should say. I think I might have a cold. Oof. Gotta take care of yourself, Vanilla Bean. Yes, you told us, my friend. Oh man, I don't like the premise of this here. Streaming has become the primary way that audiences consume entertainment. It has also become a major form of piracy. Ah, yes, my 30 seconds of a parody is a form of piracy. My 30 seconds of a Jesus, I'm like confusing words now. My 30 seconds of a parody is definitely the same as me pirating music or pirating media. I was reading about the Adolphi sax, who got a patent on the saxophone in 1846, a 15-year patent. Nice. It's like, imagine streaming a pay-per-view programming, being mad that a pay-per-view programming is being streamed when like a single pay-per-view event makes like millions of dollars, like millions. Yeah, this is a disaster. I don't think it passed, to be quite honest. I really wish it would tell me what the name of this bill is. Here we are. Protecting Lawful Streaming Act. So it didn't. Okay. Yeah, I don't think this got in with the relief package, because there doesn't show to be a vote. A link? Which one? You want more friends? Buy a truck. True. The MCA is just trying to figure out how to regain control. They like the old days when people bought albums. Yeah. But they could easily fix this. Hey, how's it going? They can easily fix this by having some type of commercial license where you would pay like a fee or something like that, and you would have like a commercial license. Oh, the bill. Oh, I'm sorry. Hold on. We'll get you that. History. Boom. All right. I mean, free advertising saves money, for crying out loud. Yeah, I mean, like, it is beneficial. It is beneficial for, especially, like, for video games and stuff like that, for people to be streaming that video game, right? You want that exposure. Again, isn't it just easier? It's the same thing with, like, media, right? Isn't it just easier to have some type of commercial licensing where you can, you know, you can have access, legal access to stream, you know, music that you have the commercial license for, right? I mean, it just seems to me like the easiest way to solve this problem. I think what they need to do is I need to sit, first of all, I need to sit down and read this this for real. In computer programs, watching. Yeah, but it's already illegal. It's already illegal to, for the purpose of to gain or offer public a digital transmission that is primarily designed and provided for the public for the purpose of publicly performing works protected under Title 17 by digital transmission without the authority of the copyright owner. So you can't stream copyrighted stuff. This is already... Oh man. Yeah, this is the stuff that irks me. Any person who violates the subsection B shall be in addition to any penalties provided under Title 7. So in addition to, you might find yourself imprisoned for not more than 3 years, or fined, or both. Cool. Shall be fined under this title, imprisoned not more than 5 years, or both. The offense was being committed in connection with one or more works being prepared for commercial public performance if the person knew or should have known that the work was being prepared for commercial performance. So yeah, oh man, these are some harsh penalties. Yikes. Jesus. Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. I've also seen I've also seen video games that you have to stream with the music off. It's beyond stupid. Exactly. So what you would have to do is basically mute the music and play DMCA free music like what I'm doing. Yeah, us listening and enjoying their music is not stealing it. Right, like you would want this thing to have more exposure, or again, this is very, very simple. Make a commercial license, okay? Make it a commercial license where you can use these where you can use these medias that you paid for, and that's it, and that's the end of it. You know, everybody, as much as a compromise could be achieved, everybody gets something, right? Jesus, what is the good faith reasoning on the other side? Do sporting venues pay royalties for in-arena music? That's a good question, Stoop Guy. I don't know. I'm sure they must have some type of commercial, some type of licensing, is it not? Oh man. It's Dr. Heemed out rating with a Barty of 16. Good morning. Good morning, everybody. How's it going? How was your stream? Smash that follow button. True. Thank you for the follow, William. Welcome, welcome. Thanks for the follow, Stories as Models. Stream good. We watched Kenneth Copeland explain why the miracles of Christmas. Yes. Now that's prime content. And they get to steal our personal data, make money all the time. Yeah, it's so um it's so it's so messed up. Thanks for the follow, Comrade Bumbles. Oh wait, hold on. Hostile Pizza. How's it going? Benzie, how's it going? Whoa. Another raid with a party of 37. What? This is just Raid City. Oh my goodness. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Comrade Bubbles. I appreciate that. Dorian, how's it going? Oh man, I just noticed that. It was a double whammy. It was a double whammy. Bubbles got popular this morning. Nice. How was your stream, Comrade Bubbles? Ooh, today... Well, good morning, everybody. Look at that. Better bring your A+ content. Let's go. We need some hype we need some hype music. I really do. I need to make sure I can figure out some type of hype alert. I need to make sure I can get some type of hype alert. That's not gonna land me in DMCA jail, right? Oh man. Now perform for the masses. Are you not entertained? Thanks for the follow. Oh my goodness. A subscription. Thank you, Patient Slot. Subscribing for tier 1. Thank you. I appreciate that. Persian music, Persian dance party. As long as it's not MCA. We have an all-star YouTuber, Twin Rabbit, here too. Oh, really? Interesting. Sweet. Hey, thanks for the follow, Beatspree. I appreciate that. Oh, they left. No worries. We can shout them out. And somebody, let's actually, I've actually never seen that YouTuber. Let's go check it out. Let's go check it out. Twin Rabbit. Let me copy. And we're going over here. Thank you guys. I really appreciate that. Bright and early. Bright and early, and we're getting all this massive love. I appreciate that. Thank you guys. Thanks for the follow, Roberto. No, don't delete you. Don't delete the YouTube shortcut. Why would you do that? Wow, Twin Rabbit was here? How do I, Okay, so maybe this is it right here. Just in case. Hey! Lost Sue. I watched a recent video. It's very good. Alright, there you go. I believe I got the link right. You can check out their Twitch on Tale of Two Rabbits. Yeah, go ahead and follow. Follow, follow, follow. Hey, Rivanilla Bean. You, walked back into quite the party now. I need to learn raid and shoutouts to you. I need to learn the raid and shoutouts to you, Ben, and Comrade Bubbles. Yeah, trust me, as you stream more, it becomes a thing. I would suggest maybe watching Stolen Anarchy. What is Stolen Anarchy? Wow, I just realized I haven't followed you, Lotsu. I'm so sorry. Smack that follow button.
Game better with Butterfinger.
Whoa. Alright, cool. Oh, one of Twin Rabbit's views. Plagiarism of collectivist principle for anarchists, work by Bakunin. It's a Twin Rabbit view. Okay. Oof. Yeah, I'm looking at it right now. 46 minutes. Ooh. Oh, so they just started. Well, relatively. Is that all the videos they have? Wow. Well, congrats to them. Nice. Legal hype music? True. Alright, we need legal hype music. Hey, Noam Chomsky, how's it going? Alright, we might have a chance to view this. I gotta get through some headlines, though. If we can. Massive Dumps remix. Yes. Yes. So every time we get a raid, every time we get a raid, I'm gonna play that song. Oh man. Yes, that's what I'm gonna have to do. Every time I'm gonna have to make that an alert. Because I'm pretty sure that's fair use. Alright, let's get through some headlines really quick, so maybe we'll have a chance to watch this one. So semi-good news before we get into the bad news, right? Costa Rican hybrid sailboat aims to reduce shipping industry's carbon footprint. Punta Morales, Costa Rica, some 200 workers from 27 nations. Do you see how awesome, like, the type of things that we can do if we just kind of, like, work together? 27 nations are building a hybrid sailboat on the Pacific coast of Costa Rica designed to carry 350 tons of goods, hoping to demonstrate that in the 21st century it is possible to transport cargo without polluting the environment. Inspired by the historic Finnish trading schooner Ingrid of the Åland Islands, the firm Sail Cargo Inc. says it's designed a vessel named Kaba to be the first of its kind in the world. It will rely mostly on wind power with 2 auxiliary electric engines for maneuvering in ports and low wind. That's awesome. One of the most important things is to prove that it's financially profitable as well as environmentally and socially sustainable. Yeah, I mean, that would be like the idea that we just can't do it, that this is just the way things are, and there's nothing that we could do to make things better is a little ridiculous, right? Because if you really wanted to, there are absolutely alternatives that you can do. And, you know, shipping stuff around the world does have an impact, does have a huge impact, as we'll see next, does have a huge impact on the environment, okay? And the fact that we do have the ability to move in this direction is, it's proven. We can do it. Now, it's up to us to make sure that we find the political will to make this a norm. The vessel is being built in Punta Morales, a port fishing community 125 kilometers west of Costa Rica's capital, San Jose. Doggett, a professional ship captain, founded the company with her partner Lynx Links Gumund, an adventurer and cabinet maker. The Canadian couple, along with a Costa Rican partner, intend to finish the prototype in 2021. Wow, next year. The ceiba is named after the sacred tree of the Central American native people. That's so cool. That is really cool. Ceiba will be put into operation in 2022 on routes between Canada, Ecuador, and Hawaii. The firm plans to recover over 6 years of private investment of the $4.2 million needed for the project. They want it to be a flagship that carries the Costa Rican flag with the products that can be truly sold under the seal of zero emissions, like coffee, turmeric, salmon. Oh, I have turmeric, by the way. Our turmeric did really well. We had such a good harvest for turmeric. I don't even know what we're gonna do with it. Salmon, barley, and others, said John Porras, the co-founder and legal representative of Sail Cargo. Amid the incessant sounds of saws, sanders, and mallets, the 45-meter, 148-foot-long ceiba is being built using wood from secondary forests, cultivated or from fallen trees nearby. Nice. Very nice. Did you read about the router renting? What's going on with that one? This is amazing. Yeah, it's really nice. Oh, I love this story too. It's not that we have to prove capitalists that good ideas are profitable. It's the idea that can't be adopted just because they aren't good ideas. Yeah, I know. True, pasta la pizza, sadly. We shipped stuff all over the world using wind for hundreds of years, right? But now we can do it in a way that also gives us the ability to use electric engines. Stop trying to make things better. Okay, so somebody said rented routers. What's up with that? So they're not even cutting new trees. They're just cultivated from or nearby fallen trees. Like this is like, in terms of like cost and sustainability, this is probably as close as you're gonna get, right? This is probably as close as you're gonna get. And I think that, hey, this is a great idea. Maybe we should normalize the way we ship things overseas in this manner, right? The router news is that if you own a router, you won't be charged rental fees anymore by your provider. So everybody should buy a router? I have a service provider router. It's not actually mine, right? It'll be way cheaper to just buy your own now, most likely. Yeah, probably. You can look it up yourself about the news. Sure. I found out about it yesterday. That's interesting. So, router news? No, not Reuters. Router service provider news? Yeah, there it is. Starting Sunday, cable companies can no longer rent you the law banning rental fees for customer-owned owned routers takes effect. Okay. Hey, there you go. Yeah. ISPs. This is 21 hours ago. ISPs can't charge customers for owned equipment. Okay, so yeah, it'd probably be cheaper in the long run. Hey, thanks for the follow, Tale of Two Rabbits. Welcome, welcome. But they don't rent to own, so if you have a router from them, you probably paid it several times over. Yeah, started January 1st. Thanks for the follow, Bread Place. Let's see. As of Sunday, December 20th, companies can't do that anymore. No, this is already in effect as of yesterday. Hey, Selena Gomez. They threw us commoners a bone. Yeah, they've apparently signed it in 2019, and it's gonna start taking effect now. Yesterday, December 20th. Hey, so there you have it. It's probably cheaper to just get yourself a router, right? It's probably cheaper in the long run to just get yourself a router. I'm pretty sure a lot of us did, Larry Weird. I'm pretty sure a lot of us did. I mean, how long have I had this, Oh geez, this service is probably about 2 years. And not only that, if you actually, get one of the, slightly better routers, you can probably have even better connection and better service, I imagine. Right? I mean, some of these routers are pretty good. The Asus routers are pretty good. I'm gonna head out, have a good one. Hey, thanks so much for stopping by, Beatspree. I appreciate that. Probably better Wi-Fi too. Yep. The rates won't change, but now you'll be responsible to buy your own router. Oh, I see. So from now on, they're not gonna rent you out stuff. Is that it? So this is great news. And the reason why I bring this up is because instead of only, I know a lot of us understand problems. This is a solution, right? Because when we see things like this, when we see things, I don't want to see these ads. When we see things like this, it's kind of infuriating, right? Because we could do so much better. We could do so much better, right? We could do so much better. We have alternatives that we can do so that this isn't a thing, right? Cheaper for me to get my internet from my neighbor? I mean, hey. I just noticed the lights are on overlay, not real. I'll be back with some coffee. Yes. Okay, so there's a my tiny setup is a fusion between, the overlays, and there are real lights behind me. Hold on, you guys. I'm gonna turn you guys off for a second. There are tiny lights you see at the bottom down here. These are real lights, so there are tiny lights that are real, but then there's this as well. No, the lights are not real. I thought the snow was real. I love the tiny lights. Thank you. How do you feel about OANN and Newsmax? They're a bit off the deep end, don't you think? Thank you, Tale of Two Rabbits. The ones are at the top, yeah. Ooh. Yeah, OAN and Newsmax are just off the deep end. Completely off the deep end. Am I Hey, listen, buddy. I'm the only one that can promote Raid Shadow Legends here, okay? I don't need an ad doing my work for me. Stop seeing this ad. Not interested. That's a better ad. Listen, I'm the only one that's allowed to promote Raid Shadow Legends, okay? You must be one of those radical livers of Fox News. Yeah, so I think that I think that it's probably good, considering that they can't screw you over. Considering that ISPs can't screw, you know, obviously ISPs, because they're essentially a duopoly. They already have enough power, and the fact that they can force you to pay rental fees, you know, and to buy this router 10 times over, it's just ridiculous. So yeah, it's good that you can kind of use your own. That's right. That's right. Fox News is actually um, is actually a has actually been taken over by the CCP. Let's get to the video. All right, we're gonna try to move move along in the headlines. I love seeing the Republican Party split in two. Yeah, exactly. So if again, please keep in mind that if you're in Georgia or know people in Georgia, please remind them there is a runoff election that's super important coming up January 5th. Do y'all think it's safer? Do y'all think it's safe to order Uber Eats during a pandemic? Probably safer than going in and eating in. If you have the ability to order out or do Uber Eats or just go pick up for delivery, that's probably best. Yeah, I don't think the Tillis bill passed. Exactly. Rhino, Chinese, Antifa, Democrat. It'll be all of them. All of them. After blocking... Okay, hold on. So, researchers warn of looming oil spill 4 times larger than the Exxon Valdez if urgent action not taken. By the way, this has been happening since 2015, and we still haven't seen any type of action to address this. A team of scientists issued a stark warning Tuesday that the possibility of averting an oil spill bigger than the 1989 Exxon Valdez catastrophe and disastrous environmental and humanitarian consequences posed by an abandoned oil tanker in the Red Sea are quickly disappearing. At issue is the corroding Safer, moored off the coast of Yemen and under control of the Houthi rebels since 2015. After blocking such efforts for years, Houthi authorities last month approved a United Nations plan to visit the tanker in early 2021. UN Environment Program Executive Director Inger Andersen warned in July that the vessel's deteriorating condition and the over 1 million barrels of oil it holds threaten long-term damage to local ecosystems. Yeah, I don't understand like what the... This is the same as the other tanker that was hanging out in the Caribbean coast, I think. I mean, like, what is the problem here? Like, politics be damned. You need to fix this now, right? It's been there since 2015. In a policy brief published by Frontiers in Marine Science, researchers said they need to pump the need to pump off the oil is urgent. A massive leak over 1 million barrels of oil, which is 4 times the Exxon Valdez tanker spill, is anticipated shortly off the coast of Yemen in the Red Sea, where the Safer's floating storage and offloading units is in the final stages of decay. That quantity, they continued, guarantees a regional, environmental, and humanitarian disaster, with certain impacts certain to affect dozens of coastal countries and the sea's rich biodiversity, including its coral reefs. Yeah, like, this isn't an option. This isn't a thing that you can choose not to address, right? I mean, you can, but the consequences of just leaving this thing here is catastrophic. So, I mean, like, in my opinion, like, politics be damned. You need to fix this now. Given the stakes, the paper called for UN International Maritime Organization and UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres to take coordinated action and achieve access to safer by all means necessary in order to pump off the oil. Yeah, whatever it takes. Like, listen, I don't know what's going on with the politics of it, or who has the rights or who has the jurisdiction or whatever. It just needs to be done. The action that must happen before winter, they pointed to models showing that the winter oil dispersion will extend further north and into the center of the Red Sea as compared to a spill dispersing during summer. The time is now to prevent a potential devastation to the region's waters and livelihoods and health of millions of people living in half a dozen countries along the Red Sea coast. Yeah. Not only that, this is even better. If a spill from the safer is allowed to occur, she continued, the oil would spread via ocean currents to devastate a global ocean resource. So it's like, again, this is not an option. This isn't like something that will just be contained to that area, right? It won't be a thing that would be contained to just that area. So anybody who's like of the mindset of like, oh well, it's just happening over there, it's not going to affect us. Wrong. Yeah, the paper called for the UN to convene a committee to consider voting on a proposal to attempt a meeting in which they think about doing something about this. Yeah, it's really ridiculous to make it look like the Wisconsin now they're just running away. Yikes. This is like the Beirut explosion all over again, except in slow motion. Yeah. I mean, so again, this isn't an option. You know, if this like starts spreading, you know, to the ocean currents, it's gonna affect everybody. So I this is so frustrating because it's like, it's in everybody's best interest to take care of the environment. It's in everybody's interest to make sure that we have healthy ecosystems, sustainable ecosystems. It's in everybody's interest that we remove ourselves away from fossil fuels as soon as possible. Like now. I mean, again, like the scientists and you know, people who understand this know that if this spreads to the ocean currents, it could devastate the global, you know, ocean ecology, right? I mean, okay, so of course it is beneficial for us to solve this problem, right? Because it does affect us in the long run, in the roundabout way. Incredible. You're making me feel doomer. No, this should re-energize you. Quite the opposite. Quite the opposite. This should bring people together. Not feel doomer. This should bring people together and say, hey, listen, we've got a community organized. We've got to spread the word and do whatever it is that we can at the local, state, and federal to try to improve this. It should do the opposite, yeah? You can post it in the Discord, Vanilla Bean. Your environment is important to keep as clean as possible. Of course. Like, I don't understand what, like, how people can be so, like, anti-environment. It's like, you do realize that the worst that can happen is, oh man, by God, we'd have actual clean water, actually sustainable ecosystems, clean air. Wow. Well, that's the worst that could happen. That's the worst. The worst that can happen is, wow, we have new technology developed for sustainable and green energy. Wow. Hey, Bleep Bop N, how's it going? I'm from Europe. It's really important here. Yeah, I completely feel that. Jesus is coming soon. Everybody should be following Bleep Blop Ben and sourcing support. My car might not. Hey, thank you for the. Oh my goodness, jeez, 7 tier 1 gifted subs. What? Just like that? Wow, we just completely annihilated that sub goal. Oh my goodness, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Look at that. Larry Weird, Purple Black Dragon, Devil23, Catalina Wolf, Irish Polak, Selena D. Gomez, and Karen B all got an awesome gifted sub. Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you. Jeez. Wow, you guys have been thank you. I am stunned by all the support that you guys have given. Wow. So yes. What was that? Somebody gave us a whole bunch of gifted subs to the community. But yes, please, go follow Ben, go follow Lost 2, go follow Sourcing Support, go follow Kez, Tale of Two Rabbits, go follow them, go check out their YouTube channel. I mean, so many awesome people in chat today. Thank you, Ben, for the gifted sub. Wow, ooh, ooh, on fire today. Thank you guys. Amazing. Nature is very important to us. Yes. In fact, you know, my family my family is from Costa Rica, and my mother's family, and we, as a country in Costa Rica, take the environment extremely seriously. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Wow. Ooh. Okay. Gotta catch my breath. You guys have been just on a roll today. So yes, this does affect everybody. This has to be addressed, and probably one of the best ways to do it is community organizing, getting people aware of the situation. You know, hopefully, the understanding that eventually, like, and the idea that this is something that's gonna happen in, you know, the next lifetime, or, you know, oh, this is gonna affect generations from now, oh, this isn't gonna be right now, is ridiculous. It's not. It's happening right now. Have you seen the unprecedented fires that have been happening on the West Coast, the unprecedented hurricane season that's happening on the East? Have you seen the Siberia on fire? Like, when these things are they're not normal, right? They're unprecedented, and every year it seems to continue to break. There's already reports of what, in 5 years 2 out of 3 would not have access to water. What's going to happen when we can't have access to water, when we can't grow food because of the environment? I mean, it's gonna get pretty dark real quick in less time than we think. Thanks for the follow, Hate City. Does someone have? Yeah, exactly, Ben. Like, how much does it? How much of a POS does someone have to be to ignore this? Absolutely. Like, understand that even if also generations from now means like your kids and grandkids, right? Like, so you just like, the people who have like this mentality that it's like, oh, I'm not gonna be here. I'm not gonna be here is like, it's like ridiculous. So you don't care about like your grandchildren or your kids or your kids' kids, right? Like, gotta go for now. Keeps us updated on the telescope. Absolutely. If I see anything, thank you so much for stopping by. And it's like it's so crazy to me because like the way I kind of have to pitch it, especially for like you know my parents and things and you know people on the more conservative side. It's like this thing is happening right now. You know how I started shifting my parents' thought? I showed them a study about how property insurance and property values are going to start becoming a problem in South Florida. Not even in my generation, very soon. Very soon, in about 15 years. In about 15 years. So it's like, so I kind of pitched it in the sense that, like, so basically, the house, you know, you worked all your life, supposedly, to keep us good, right? You worked all your life for this house. And supposedly, you did this for us, right? Well, what's that gonna turn out to be in 15 to 20 years, right? Like, I am in the USA. I should keep studying or what since the world is ending? Absolutely, you should study. Exactly, Hambless. I did exactly the meme, but I did it in I did it with actually, like, you know, presenting them an economic study because of course that's how I have to sell it, right? And they understand. They're like, wait a minute. Huh. Yeah, you're right. This is a problem. When my child was born, I started caring about politics. I want the world to be better for him. Yeah, absolutely, Patience Sloth. We should want the world to be better. Regardless, we should always want to be we should always want to progress, right? Isn't that the idea? We should always want to be progressive. I mean, in my opinion, what that word means is to constantly progress. There are better things that we can be doing, and in order for us to move in that direction, the first thing we have to understand is that we have fundamental problems. It's okay to critique, you know, the fundamental flaws of our systems in place. It's okay to get together and organize and realize, like, hey, listen, this is going to end up affecting all of us, okay? All of us, right? It's not just some ephemeral thing that's going to happen in decades from now, hundreds of years from now. No, it's happening now. I have kids and grandkids. Hey, there you go. I mean, so yeah, I mean, I use the rhetoric that works for me depending on the person I'm talking about. But I basically said, like, hey, you know, you guys worked your entire lives for this house, right? Isn't that the idea, to leave something to your children? What exactly is going to happen in 15 to 20 years? I'll still be alive. We need to convince that the ones that are scared to challenge the worldview that it's okay if they do. Yeah, that's 100% correct. Like, you know, there are you can see and you can acknowledge some of the fundamental problems, and it's okay to, you know, acknowledge that maybe there is something wrong. Maybe, you know, I've had times where I've had to acknowledge that I was wrong, that I've had to challenge my worldview. Of course. Hey, Substep, how's it going? Did Congress vote yet? I believe they did. Hey, Chai Bureaucrat. That's a good question. That's a good question, Chai Bureaucrat. All right, let's run through this really quickly. So yes, turns out that the environment is extremely important, and we should focus and do everything that we can to address this issue. Okay, I don't care about any of this. Where is the... That's a good question, Chai Bureaucrat. News? Should be on news. The Congress reached a relief deal. So, no. They reached a deal. So what they did was they passed a stopgap bill. Here we go. They passed a stopgap bill to avoid the government shutdown, and they reached a deal. So it seems like that's what's going to pass. Hey, Grom, imagine thinking the environment over profit. True. Absolutely, keeping the nature is clean. Like this is only beneficial, right? Like this is only pluses to keeping a good environment. The stimulus is not good enough. It is not. It is 100% not good enough. True, patient sloth. It isn't really good enough. It's a joke. Yes, I agree, Sophiax. It's a joke. But ideally, this would be a monthly reoccurrence of minimum about anywhere from 1,500 to 2,000 a month should be the minimum that Congress should have done and should have been able to get together and complete. But we got one-time stimulus of $1,200 and another one of $600. Can you imagine how insulting that is? Again, I would choose 600 over 0, but still, it's kind of a, you know, it's like a spit in the face. When I was a kid, conservative values also applied to the environment. Well, there was actually, unironically, there was a time where it's true. They did care. Yeah, basically. I hope some people... Hey, M. Fonzie, I hope some people are getting that retroactively. Same, because, I mean, how exactly are we supposed to keep the economy afloat or make sure people have enough to, I don't know, eat? Incredible. Alright, folks. Really quickly, I'm going to take a moment to show for myself. Folks, if you enjoyed the content, make sure you smack the follow button and quickly head on over to our YouTube channel and hit that subscribe. It really does help us out. And of course, you guys being here has really helped us out. Thank you all. Thank you. So yes, please smack the follow button and head on over to YouTube and hit the subscribe button. I really appreciate that. Corporate values destroy the environment and politicians do what they want. True. Exactly. Punch that follow button. I heard nothing about eviction relief. I think that they're putting that on hold until an extra month. Is that it? Okay, so we went through this. Supreme Court might be finding its way to overturning qualified immunity, which is just good, because obviously one of the problems that we have is this kind of like carte blanche, like qualified immunity that allows the government to get away with stuff and not see any type of retaliation, right? Jeez, I just heard some loud noise. All right. Anyways, so yeah, it seems like they might be on their way to eliminating qualified immunity, which I think is extremely important. I think it's in the bill. It's just an extension. Yeah, exactly. I don't think they're per se is doing anything other than extending the eviction relief. Also, I did forget to mention, this stream is, for the meantime, in the next couple of days, is sponsored by Raid Shadow Legends. So if you guys want to help out this channel and download the free game, there is a link. There is a link there. No real rent cancellation, if I recall. It's going to be a major issue. Yeah, it is. If not, they have to figure out, because help me understand this, is the rent back due? So for example, when these things expire, January 5th, Georgia runoff January 5th, is the rent moratorium just a moratorium, or is it like, do you have to pay all that back rent? Because if you do, I'm sorry, for all intents and purposes, this isn't going to do anything. There's nothing preventing landlords from charging back rent. That's going to be a huge issue. All back rent comes due? No, that's going to be no. How are you supposed to, if you can't even afford 1 month of rent? How are you supposed to back pay 9 months of rent? But they have to make a plan. Like, but you're always going to be in a perpetual a trap. Either that, or you simply lose your home. You get evicted. That's right, I forgot sourcing. Gotta use that bootstraps. Landlords have already filed evictions, so courts immediately would start processing redayment of the moratorium ends. Yep, that's true. All these landlords should just start a small business to pay for their losses. Yeah, but it's like, it's not even that. It's like, why? You're gonna leave people out in the street. You can't do that. I mean, from a moral perspective, it's unfathomable. But I guess, whatever. I guess people just don't care. Our government seems to not have figured out that which is profitable is moral. Yeah. Mammoth estimated thinks 600 is enough. Yeah, exactly. Must be nice. I already downloaded Raid for 4 of the streamers. Hey, listen. If it's a way to help out your friendly neighborhood streamer for the freeze, I highly encourage it. The cops they will need to hire will carry out the court orders. Everyone evicted can get a job as cop. No. It's a game. Yeah, apparently that's true. I can't believe people are ignoring this in the mainstream. I know I've seen like a couple of articles talking about the impending eviction crisis, but it hasn't been like the main thing, right? True. He needs to get the fuck out of here with that net worth. I mean, seriously, imagine thinking that $600 is enough. Like, what exactly are we supposed to do with that? That isn't even half of rent in any place that I know of. I mean, unless you live like in a shoebox. Most of the time trying to make bills that allow for legal discriminations. I'm joking. See all the news, the new ones they created in 2020. Yep. Georgia runoff is the 5th. That's right. All right, guys. So I think that let's play this in the meantime.
Here, but when I saw you passing by, I simply could not resist.
As we're all aware, working within the algorithm can require a bit of misdirection. But my title isn't strictly a lie either. Ideas don't come from singular geniuses. They come from groups of people deciding that something has merit, which means ideas as big as Marxism or communism or anarchy didn't just miraculously appear. They were inspired by and perpetuated by groups. The thing is, all too often, credit is being given for that work, which was far from original, and in it happening, very specific groups are being left out of the story entirely. I aim, in my own small way, to attempt to correct that. Please join me on my journey. Lewis Henry Morgan was a fanboy. Really, he was the fanboy. He was such a fanboy, he created his own members-only club so that other people who fanboyed as hard as he did could dress up as their favorite characters and periodically march down the street chanting in a made-up language. Morgan loved cosplay. He wrote books about the characters he liked the most. He and his friends would get together regularly in meat space. It was the whole cliche. These days, none of it sounds particularly remarkable, but it stands out a little more when I say Lewis was a fanboy in 1841, and the club that he was a part of was the Order of the Iroquois. A backstory. The first one. Brace yourself. This part's completely silly, in the way only a true fandom club can be. Morgan's grandfather, Thomas, had originally purchased land from the Cayuga tribe, one of the members of the Iroquois Confederacy, which is where Lewis got the name for his club. Granddad then built a school, he rather uncreatively named Cayuga Academy, which Lewis and his father, Jedediah, both attended for free. Jedediah invented a plow that worked better in the local soil, and Grandpa helped finance a foundry to make parts. The plow business was so successful, they eventually built a factory, and Dad moved to the city to become a businessman and join the local Masonic Lodge in Aurora, New York.
What?
Lewis then used Dad's money to attend university, and the lodge gave Lewis's dad the business connections to hook Lewis up with a local law firm. When he graduated, Lewis tried to find work as a lawyer, but the economy was in a slump, so he used his allowance to do things like create the Knickerbocker, which was basically a newspaper where he and his university friends could publish their short stories.
That's true,
They eventually
Patience
formed
Law.
a secret society called the Gordian Knot, which met on the second floor of his dad's Masonic Lodge. The club was boys only, and it was mostly about reading poetry in Latin and Greek, so they didn't get a lot of new members. After a year, they gave up, cut the knot, and reformed as the Order of the Iroquois. Natives were becoming fashionable for the literary set because of frontier fiction authors like James Fenimore Cooper. Their membership went up, so they renamed accordingly as the Grand Order of the Iroquois. With enough people, they settled on a series of initiation rites, because they were meeting in a Masonic Lodge and they were a secret society, so of course they needed initiation rites, and renamed a final time as the New Confederacy of the Iroquois. Morgan so enjoyed the initiation part,
Yeah.
he even called it Indianation, which he pretentiously described as the process where a new member transformed themselves into the very spirit of the Iroquois. I told you it was a fandom trope. It's kind of exactly like a bunch of bored white guys dressing up like samurai, calling themselves the new shogunate, and holding meetings once a month at the Waffle House down the street. Back to our story. Now, picture this. A fanboy browsing through some fanfic at a Comic-Con, and while he's standing there, an actual real-life Klingon walks up and asks him where the bathroom is. Or an otaku about to buy the latest issue of his absolute favorite manga, and Goku asks him where the Yuri on Ice coloring books are.
Absolutely, Chiberican. So basically what I would answer to that, because I scrolled up a little bit, is, hey, here's an idea. Expand, like, prioritize, like, women's rights, yeah? 1.3 million have already voted. President Trump is itching to declare martial law. I don't think. Listen, as much as he may fantasize about doing that, I highly doubt that he's going to do so.
It should come as no surprise then that the heart of the founder
That doesn't mean
of the
we
Order
shouldn't
of
be
the Iroquois
vigilant.
would sing with delight if he ever got the chance to share his meat space with the object of his obsession. Exactly this happened to Morgan when, while shopping in a bookstore in the 1840s, he accidentally ran into Eli Parker. See, Eli Parker was an actual Iroquois, and he was a member of the Seneca tribe. By the time he met Morgan, Parker's dad was already a famous Seneca orator and diplomat, and Eli had begun studying U.S. law at a New York law firm. Backstory number 2. Unlike Morgan, Parker did not come from rich parents or go into law because he
Full
was
screen?
bored. He
All
put
right.
himself through school after starting his working life as a stable cleaner. Although he studied law for the standard 3 years, he was doing it to help his tribe negotiate treaties in court. He would never actually be officially admitted to the bar because natives wouldn't be legal citizens for another 75 years. Despite that fact, Parker demonstrated his abilities so well, he was eventually appointed as primary secretary to General Ulysses S. Grant during the Civil War, ultimately rose to the rank of Brevet Brigadier General, and was the author of the Surrender of Appomattox. After Grant was elected president, Parker was appointed the Commissioner of Indian Affairs. You'll note, though photos from the period place Parker front and center, images, which were in the popular press, do their best to make him look like a waiter who accidentally walked into the shot. To continue. Now remember, Morgan had done all of that grand fiddle fart of the most majestic
Why
man of
the
tribe
fast?
stuff before he and Parker ever met. What this
Because we have very limited time, and I have to start work at 11:25 usually, so I kind of like make sure to get run to be able to run through this.
meant was Parker was fluent in English and Seneca, and was therefore a perfect access point for Morgan to fanboy full-time, to fanboy professionally, as it were, which he absolutely did. By the time Morgan died, in 1881, he'd published half a dozen texts on the kinship system of the Iroquois, the architecture of the Iroquois, the ceremonies of the Iroquois. For all that, Morgan has been given such illustrious titles as the father of kinship studies and the father of American anthropology. His work was so often quoted, they started using U.S. native tribes to name various kinship systems, a method which only died out in the last few decades. His work was so pervasive, I can remember seeing his book, Systems of Consanguinity and Affinity of the Human Family, on an undergrad recommended reading list, even though it was published in 1871. Worst of all, he did what Edward Burnett Tyler had done back in England and decided Darwin's writings on species evolution was a synonym for species improvement. If species improve over time, so the argument goes, societies must improve over time too. They both combined that with the Industrial Revolution and created the comprehensive social evolution model. It's also called unilineal
Thanks for
evolution
the follow,
theory, outlined by
Kamsa.
Morgan in his seminal text, Ancient Society, or Researches in the Lines of Human Progress, from Savagery through Barbarism to Civilization, published in 1877. Pay special attention to that sequence, savagery to barbarism to civilization. It'll come up again. Their argument goes like this. Humans go from
Yeah,
flying-
so just say that, right? Just say that you want to improve conditions and make sure that people get education, and prioritize women's rights and things like that. Just say that. I think that's easier, right? Because it kind of gives bad vibes when you speak in that manner.
to stab each other randomly with sticks, to organizing a specific group of people who stab each other with sticks, to inventing guns and taking over the people who still fight with sticks. Find a society anywhere in the world, and you can figure out which part of the universal timeline of progress they're on by how they're organized and whether they'd make a good setting for your steampunk short story. At one stroke, Tyler and Morgan had created two racist tropes that would influence countless European writers from Jung to Byron and Kipling to Tolkien. First, the myth of the noble savage, who doesn't understand property, whose freedom from the constraints of civilized society make him both childlike but also more in touch with his natural surroundings. And second, the myth of the bucolic and peaceful prehistory, which you can study if you find the right primitive group of people. This was perpetuated by groups like the Romantics back in Europe, who were writing fiction that pretended to be critical of the aristocracy and technology while lounging in expensive houses. Authors like Voltaire or Diderot or John Keats loved the idea of what became known as before the fall narratives. So much so, there's a word for it in literary studies, prelapsarian. They actually had to invent a word for the trope, it's so popular. In fact, Diderot was so in love with the idea that brown natives worked as a stand-in for the Garden of Eden, he wrote an entire book questioning the French Enlightenment by comparing it to Tahiti, based on some notes from an explorer named Bougainville, who'd published in 1771. Since Bougainville had called his book Voyages of Bougainville, Diderot called his supplement to the Voyages of Bougainville. Very clever. But Bougainville, like Diderot, was French. Unsurprisingly, British poets, like Coleridge, preferred referencing British explorers, so men like George Chevelock or Philibert Commerson. Can I just mention, I didn't add that earring. It's in the original portrait. I just made it a little more colorful. This guy was a pirate. He just happened to be getting paid by the British government. I just mentioned that. And of course, a huge inspiration for these narratives was the inimitable Captain James Cook. Backstory number 3. In itself, using Cook as a source is at least a little funny. He may have had a commanding figure setting off, but Cook was ultimately killed by the supposed primitive Hawaiians who had previously aided him. This is probably because he and his men shot at them and caused a riot after the Hawaiians decided resupplying Cook for a third time was too many times. To this day, the only actual town celebrating Captain Cook is on Big Island, which isn't where he first landed. That's at the other end of the island chain. No, the town Captain Cook is where he was killed. I say it's funny because, frankly, it's a really useful visual even now for understanding both the disconnect between the two massively different narratives, but specifically the reaction that most indigenous populations had for the appropriation of their cultures as nothing more than fashion accessories to advance some European's career. A whole town, named for the day they killed an explorer for trying to use them to his own ends, by a group of people then remembered by other Europeans as naive innocents who didn't understand that they were being taken advantage of. Okie dokie. Before moving away from the so-called explorer stories completely, there are also the writings of William Penn to consider. He was not an explorer necessarily. He somewhat accidentally became the governor of one of the original British colonies on the northern continent of the Americas. Handily, it's not hard to figure out which one, because it was named Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania was founded on lands
okay,
hard
hold
claimed
on.
by the Lenni Lenape tribe, also known as the Delaware. But unlike
Listen, folks. Very simple. What we should do, well, if you really want to seriously address these issues, first of all, let's try to stay on topic. Second of all, can we stress the importance of making sure people have education, food, housing, and healthcare? Okay? By the way, that will help with climate change. Yeah, turns out it will. And promoting women's rights.
of other governors, Penn was a member of the Society of Friends, more commonly called Quakers, and his religion was founded on ideas of human equality and shared grace through the Holy Spirit. So, unlike the Puritans to the north or the plantation owners to the south, he wanted a committed relationship with the tribe. As such, he negotiated a treaty with several local chiefs, which was recorded by the tribe in the form of wampum belts.
Let's not go down that route, okay?
Which serve as legal documents to tribes throughout the region, and were often created to commemorate specific agreements or regulations. If you notice here, there's a portrait of the historic meeting of Penn and the chiefs at the Shakamaxon Elm. That tree appears in dozens of representations of the event, including Benjamin West on the left and N. Courier on the right. It's considered so historic that when the tree died in the 1800s, a monument was erected where it had been, and now there's even a city park. Specific details to notice here on the wampum belt are the two blue diagonal lines at the edge indicate the borders of the treaty document, which means that third oddly spaced and broken line in the middle, that's the tree. It's also worth noticing that in both portraits, the Quakers are wearing the traditional black big frigging hat. This feature did not go unnoticed by the makers of the wampum belt either. Anyway, the Quakers had, as an article of faith, a practice of refusing to swear oaths to God in court. They felt it was a form of taking the Lord's name in vain. They also didn't technically recognize titles. They would recognize that someone was respected within their community, but they did not personally bow before kings. So Penn very intentionally negotiated with several chiefs rather than just one, an act that the natives took as a sign of respect of their diversity. So for all involved, the handshake and the record of the handshake was the binding document. But a wampum belt isn't a contract in British courts. This is where poet and satirist Voltaire comes in. Backstory number 5. Voltaire hated the Roman Catholic Church and most members of the aristocracy who didn't buy his books or pay his bar bills. So he celebrated the Society of Friends, not out of respect necessarily, but as a towering monument to how the aristocracy and the church were useless. Specifically in The Religion of the Quakers, he described the Shakamaxon Treaty as, "This is the only treaty between those people and the Christians that was not ratified by an oath and that was never infringed." At other places, he applauds the Quakers for looking non-threatening, so the natives stay and talk instead of flying off into the woods. He emphasizes how wonderful it was that they flocked in crowds to see Penn, to offer themselves as his vassals. This is noteworthy for several reasons. First, Voltaire conveniently leaves out the part where, in nearly every other colony, they'd experienced several violent battles with local natives and come off the worse for it. The Wapping War, the Peachtree War, and the Pequot War, they had all ended less than 20 years before. And the Anglo-Powhatan Wars ended with Charles II having to concede to the natives. The French Iroquois Wars were still going and wouldn't even be over for another 30 years. Where he got flying off into the woods is anyone's guess. But more to the point, secondly, Voltaire also forgot to mention that he couldn't possibly have seen vast crowds of natives offering themselves because he hadn't been born yet. But never mind, he said it was never sworn, so that's how it's been remembered right through to now, with his romantic notion of taming the savages dragged right along behind. Returning to Penn though, knowing the wars, the violence, the sometimes outright hatred that existed between the Europeans and the natives, Penn chose instead to live with the Lenape and learn their language to demonstrate trust. Far from Voltaire's absurd ideas about appearing benevolent, Penn respectfully engaged with the tribe and their government.
True.
He even wrote several documents about
so
the
maybe
organization of their
like
society.
the type of stuff that I was talking about, making sure people have food, housing, education, and healthcare, kind of moves in that direction, don't you think? So yes, let's try not to move into very dark roads. Too fast, I gotta go. No problem.
Regimented the process of engaging with their elders' council could be. One letter is important here. It's dated the 28th of July, 1683. It's a letter to his friend Robert Spencer, who was in France from 1640 to 1702, who also happened to be the Earl of Sunderland in England. Quote, "For the people, the Indians, they are savage to us. In their person and furniture, all is rude here. But they have great shape, strength, agility, and in council, for they, though in a kind of community among themselves, observe property and government, they speak seldom, interspaces of silence, short, elegant, fervent. The old sit in a half moon upon the ground, the middle-aged in a like figure at a little distance behind them, and the young in the same manner behind that. None speak but the aged, they having consulted the rest before. Thus, in selling me their land, they ordered themselves. I must say, yet obscurity considered, wanting tradition, example, and instruction, They are an extraordinary people. By the way, I don't mean to suggest that Penn was flawless. He was a terrible anthropologist by today's standards, and he thought the reason that natives existed was they were a lost tribe of Israel mentioned in the Old Testament. He was, however, a fair humanitarian who took the Lenape and other indigenous populations on their own terms, rather than manipulating them into a handy shorthand for ignorant and childlike proto-humans. Tellingly, he doesn't say they have no government, he specifically says it's obscure, the very opposite of the fantasy, easily interpreted and primitive that other Europeans would claim in order to flatter themselves. Which means, by the time he was writing, only barely a century after Europeans figured out there was a continent full of people nearby, the noble savage image of natives was already floating around in Europe for Penn to be pushing up against. Pacific Islanders and the northern North American tribes were pretty famous, but as I say, famous as much as a proxy for quasi-nostalgic poetic license back in Europe, as famous for who they really were. Why should anyone care about William Penn, Voltaire, Coleridge, Diderot, or Morgan? Well, besides their possibly helping out a pub quiz, seemingly not much, except when it comes to the friends of all those people. Even though Lewis Henry Morgan put Eli Parker in the credit for his first text, League of the Hood-Anansi or Iroquois, in 1851, it didn't really help because there was no co-author credit, and he never really credited Parker again. However, Morgan got a co-author credit when someone else wrote a book about him. Specifically, Frederick Engels gave him part of the title in his magnum opus. The Origin of the Family, Private Property, and the State was subtitled In the Light of the Researches of Lewis Henry Morgan. In fact, Engels gave over whole sections to praise how important and or brilliant Morgan was. In Chapter 1, Prehistoric Stages of Culture, he says, "The gens of the American Indians served him further as a means of making the second decisive advance in the field of investigation he had entered upon."
Dang, so he didn't even...
The gens, organized
So he didn't even give
was
him
the original
credit?
form out of which developed the later gens, organized according to the Fatherite. The gens, as we find it among the civilized people of antiquity. The Greek and Roman gens, an enigma to all previous historians, was now explained by the Indian gens, and thus a new basis was found for the whole history of primitive society. Clearly, this opens a new era in the treatment of the history of primitive society. The Motherite gens has become the pivot around which this entire science turns. In this passage, gens was the original word for kinship, meaning Engels is arguing groups who trace their kinship relative to women are less civilized than groups who trace their kinship from men. Considering Engels is arguing as more advanced, a Europe which had instituted divine rule and the intercontinental chattel slave trade, I'll take my matriarchy if it's all the same, Fred. But he wasn't done there, because of course, that isn't Engels' most famous work. Arguably that title goes to his team up with Karl Marx for the Communist Manifesto from 1848. Remember when I said Morgan had already founded a fanboy fraternity and met a real-life native by then? He'd also started putting out notes and summaries of his research. So much so, a collection of notebooks written by Engels in the 1840s were already mentioning this new information coming out of the Americas. In fact, Engels also happened to mention in the foreword to the fourth edition of Origin of the Family that Marx had planned to write his own thoughts on Morgan's work using a materialism model, but had died before he could get to it, which isn't surprising because the trope Morgan helped to invent was precisely what Marx eventually called primitive communism. Marx said previously he'd proven primitive communism existed by working backward from the more recent history of slavery, feudalism, and capitalism, proving by induction that primitive communism must have existed somewhere in prehistory. With Morgan's work, he supposedly had scientific backing to confirm it.
Did he create anarcho-primitivism? Wait, was it anarcho-primitivism? Is this where this started? Also, how can we secure food, housing, education, and healthcare under capitalism? Through selling one's labors to firms, submitting to the ballot box, and begging for it from the bourgeois state? Well, there's many different ways you can do it. In fact, we could probably do it now, if we had the political will to do so. We have producers who make metric tons of food that go into the garbage. Why? Maybe we should maybe that shouldn't be a thing. What about healthcare? Healthcare is a right, and therefore you could make an argument, not only economically but morally, for a universal healthcare system. You could do that right now. What about housing? You can expand or make a specific government housing program to make sure that there is no homelessness. Education, well, tuition-free college. So we make, we beg the state to intervene on our behalf. Like, what is the alternative, Shalmar? Right? 30% of food produced is wasted. Exactly. That shouldn't be a thing. It should be given to people. It should be given to people, food banks, and things like that. So nobody in this country, or in fact in this planet, should technically go hungry. No, we take it for ourselves. I'm not sure that would be successful, though. That's like my issue, right? Engels losing followers as we speak. Yeah, like I just don't know how that would actually achieve the results that we think it will. I don't even know the correct way of doing it, but the first thing that we do need to acknowledge is that there are fundamental problems and that we can do stuff like organize, get these issues to the forefront. We can do things like participate in local elections, run for Congress. We can do things like constantly organize and petition our representatives. Those that don't work for us should be voted out. In the U.S., there's 34 empty houses for one homeless person landlord's person at the house. We're out to increase property value. Yes, there are segments of that. So it should be given people conditionally by the state so that it's conditional on national identity and predicated on sovereignty and competitive welfare of the state. I'm just saying that the fastest way, or the most, I guess, realistic, like politically achievable way, is working with the levers that we have at this time, right? Because, like, I mean, what is the alternative? Like, how exactly is it going to achieve the results that we want it to, right? There are communities reclaiming houses. RHED is an example there. Right, so you create these are things, and these are things that you get by doing collective action, right? Because these are what you're talking about, Comrade Bubbles, is people getting together and buying up these houses, right? Is that what you're saying? And just taking those houses for themselves, just like buying them up. So then what exactly are they doing?
Their theory. Of course, the fact Penn had proven.
Are they
them
fighting
all
it in
wrong
court?
50 years before, and the fact Morgan's definition of progress hinged on the very resource hoarding and complex class hierarchies that Marx and Engels were attacking, Marx and Engels handily ignored, much as Voltaire and Diderot had ignored the complexity of the societies they used as a backdrop for throwing spitballs at the Pope 20 years before. I'd also like to note, those familiar with more nationalistic rhetoric should start noticing some themes in terminology, because Morgan's and
They're
Marx's
just living in
is
there?
also used to justify forcing primitive cultures to catch up, or even just remove them, lest we bring everyone else down. Now, some, like Marx and Engels, stuck with social revolution, but others, like U.S. General and later 7th President Andrew Jackson, started talking about boarding schools and removal policies, and biologists like Herbert Spencer and Francis Galton, who happened to be Charles Darwin's cousin, started talking about breeding programs and what would eventually be called eugenics.
Oof.
This is the beginning of concepts like reservation systems, concentration camps, and scientific racism. That's on the political and science side. On the social side, poets like Diderot and Coleridge, remember them using natives as a proxy for pure.
They're just living there? Yeah, what I'm scared of is, like, it'll give the state the power to come down on you, right?
Had a literary device they could deploy to discuss ideas like challenging traditional marriage or celebrating egalitarianism. In fact, Godwin had grown up hearing about non-European social structures because he was friends with the second Earl of Sunderland, Lord Robert Spencer, a previous Robert Spencer being the person William Penn was writing his letters to back in 1683. Professionally, Godwin was close enough to Lord Spencer, he wrote Lord Spencer a letter in 1790 to ask for a recommendation to a position in the British Museum. Personally, while his wife was writing Vindication of the Rights of Women, Godwin's An Inquiry Concerning Political Justice, an attack on political institutions, and things as they are, is reminiscent of Diderot's arguments. Godwin posits that a true, as he called it, anarchism
Hey,
would be
$27.
for a
How's it
person
going?
to stand in perfect rational harmony with the world around them. It's a very romantic argument, like an enlightened savage, one might say, returning to the garden. For those who will understand, Godwin's analogy is precisely why he and Malthus are placed in opposition to one another in political science classes. Am I saying that in certain contexts, Marx, Engels, and Godwin should be included in lists of more overt white supremacists like Galton? Yes. And I'm not the only one saying it either. When they republished Engels' original essay for Origin of the Family, 1 century later, the editors of Population and Development Review prefaced their December 1988 issue by saying, occasionally, an unmistakable tinge of what today would be labeled male chauvinism appears. Also, and perhaps more surprisingly, there is a strong element of social Darwinism, normally associated with conservative thought and politics, in the arguments presented by Engels here. Diderot, Marx, Engels, Godwin, Wollstonecraft, anyone who knows the key foundational texts of philosophical and political anarchy or communism can start ticking off names right now. But wait, there's more. And what the editors of Population and Development called a tinge of social Darwinism would become less occasional. First, a bit of spot the name. Marx got a big boost to his political and social career when he started.
The tools we... Okay, hold on. The tools we have access to at this time are not going to solve the problem. Stopgap measures are fine, but we aren't in the position yet to solve the problem, so that's not a good reason to write off long-term solutions. No, I'm not writing off long-term solutions. So what you need to do is gather... If you need to gather these things and build up a reason why we should, and that starts with organizing. Does that make sense? Labor movement is in its weak state right now because of constant fight for stopgap measures, wasted time and effort in establishing and defending them ad nauseum. So what you should do, I mean, obviously labor is kind of like crushed in this country, right? It has very little to no power whatsoever. So if we want to solve that, we should probably start by organizing, right? Normalizing forming of unions, right? Making the word union not really exactly a scare word. That's a good start.
International Workmen's Association. He was there at the IWA the same time as Mikhail Bakunin, and between the two, they honed their fundamental divide, which was between a centralized communist revolution favored by Marx and a more communal revolution favored by Bakunin. Bakunin borrowed a word from Pierre-Joseph Proudhon, who became famous for coining the phrase property is theft in 1840, and formed what many would now call anarcho-communism. Marx was close enough with these guys, he recorded the arguments with Bakunin and said they were sometimes the highlight of his day and would last well into the early hours of the morning. Peter Kropotkin enters the picture on the Bakunin side, opposing the Marx side, and things eventually got so hot, Bakunin left the IWA and hooked up with groups like the Jura Foundation. If none of those names sound familiar, that's fine. It suffices to say all of the big names in early European Marxism, communism, and anarchism knew each other. They all were working from the same basic script. By the way, guess who wrote the script guys like Bakunin and Kropotkin were using? Hint, it was from the US, and it was based on a native, but it wasn't any actual natives or anything any native had actually said. Anarcho-communism starts producing feminist critiques of Marxism through authors like Rosa Luxemburg. Those critiques eventually make her famous enough in anarchist and communist circles to earn her a biography, and thanks to Dunevskaya Rhea, Luxemburg and her famous answer to Marxism eventually gets brought to the US, and Marxist humanism becomes a thing. Now, some of you may notice, wasn't that the US where the Quakers were writing about humanist natives 400 years before? That's an irrelevant detail. Anyway, sticking with Dunevskaya
Is the most
for a moment.
effective tactic
Remember
for
when I said
change?
Engels kept a notebook when he first hooked up with Marx, and it mentioned Morgan's work? Dunevskaya didn't stop at mentioning the notes. She decided to actually read them. This was a fairly bold step, considering most casual readers don't even know they existed. You can still see this to this day
our
on the
independent
influences
unions,
on Karl Marx page on
not same for
Wikipedia. Notice
state,
it barely mentions Morgan,
corporate
and
unit
it summarizes the notebook
corporation.
simply as obscure. According to Dunevskaya, far from being obscure and academic,
Yeah,
they're
yeah,
integral
that'd
to
be
understanding
great.
Engels's and Marx's conceptual foundations. In her biography of Luxemburg, she cites those notes as epic-making notebooks which rounded out Marx's life's work, profound writings which therefore have created a new vantage point from which to view Marx's oeuvre as a totality. Scholar E.P. Thompson, in The Poverty of Theory and Other Essays, goes on and points out that Marx and his
Centuries are
increasing
suspicious, you guys are
preoccupation in his last years with anthropology was resuming the projects of his Paris youth. Paris, where Lord of Sunderland was when Penn was writing to him, where Voltaire was celebrating Quakers and mocking
It's kinda
natives for being
cringe,
forest
Mario.
dwellers, where Diderot was writing obnoxious racist satires of Tahitian
Hey, do
villagers
good
not wearing
official.
underwear. That Paris. Plus, in those notes, we find Engels writing sympathetically of American Shaker communities, which he argued proved, quote, communism is not only possible, but has actually been already realized. The Shakers, who are an offshoot of the Quakers, who set up shop in the...
We're going over a very interesting analysis, or would this be considered if hold on, if Twin Rabbits is in chat, can this be confirmed? Tale of Two Rabbit, can this be considered like a history video? That's what we're doing, Stupka. I'm actually a huge proponent of what I call I'm actually a huge proponent of this comes from a streamer called yeah, he doesn't, I don't think he streams anymore, but this comes from a streamer called MotoCap. I'm a huge democratic capitalist. Now hear me out. I think you should have a say in what happens to your workplace. So it's like capitalism, except you have democratic ownership of what you do. Shouldn't you be a participant of what happens to your workspace? Super, right? Polymarxism is cringe, not criticizing it. What are you talking about? Are you okay, buddy? Yes, I'm an omni-liberal. So I think that you should, if you are going to have my system, you probably should have some type of it's some type of like ownership, right? Like, reinvent the typical business model and talk about how worker co-ops should probably be more of a thing in this democratic capitalism that I'm co-opting. In my view, this is probably better for stop giving it away, 12013. So yeah, it probably would be something like that. It's more of a critical analysis of discourse on collective laughter. Anarchist is based in some fairly racist European scholarship, but it doesn't need to be plenty of non-white cultures. Oh yeah, absolutely. Hey Grolem, how's it going? You're giving my plan away, 12013, alright? Stop it. Y'all should follow Grolem for some memes. For some meme League of Legends plays. I'm sure you experience in order to say minorities have thoughts too. You have to first prove Western was in the front and the brilliance of culture. Well, no, I mean, obviously, other people contributed too. So I think that the idea is that, guess what? There's other stuff to this too, right?
Poe's Wilderness of New York, where the Iroquois live, those Shakers. And just in case there's any question of who's influencing who, from what
70% win rate, nice.
And philosophical manuscripts, page 142. Marx came to realize these primitive communities had incomparably greater vitality than the Semitic, Greek, Roman, and a fortiori the modern capitalist societies. To the wealth of subjective human sensuality, Iroquois society stood much higher than any of the societies poisoned by the pestilential breath of civilization. Engels wrote those words in 1844, before he wrote the Communist Manifesto. Yeah. So this happened. And it kept happening for roughly a century's worth of European anthropology, sociology, political theory, philosophy, and literature. This isn't just interesting speculation. Voltaire, Diderot, Karl Marx, Frederick Engels, William Godwin, Mary Wollstonecraft, Mikhail Bakunin, all of these original voices can be traced directly back to Tahiti and the eastern coastal tribes of North America. Oh, and when I said the social Darwinism would stop being subtext, it eventually just became text. Here's the thing. Eli Parker and the Lenape
make
didn't
churches
get
pay
credit from any of
taxes.
these
That's a
authors.
good one.
Not in the foundational work, not a thank you for allowing researchers access to their tribes and histories and ceremonies, nada. Morgan was eventually adopted by the Seneca because they thought his interest in connecting with them was genuine. Yet not only was there no co-author credit by anyone, they were eventually used to represent throwbacks to prehistory, something Marx and Engels and Godwin and Wollstonecraft and Kropotkin and Proudhon and Diderot had evolved past. The Quakers were so completely ignored, Engels gave credit to their offshoot, which arrived afterward and into an environment already negotiated peacefully with the very people Engels and Marx claimed were incapable of comprehending property ownership. If that weren't insulting enough, feminist critiques, such as those advanced by Luxembourg, ended up being nonsensical. Allow me to clarify that last bit. The origin of the Great Law of Peace was a man named de
Want to
Colombia.
remain
He was
free
known
and
as a
don't
great
want to be
peacemaker,
told
but
how to
he didn't
run
word
their
alone.
lives.
He didn't speak all of the necessary languages to unite the tribes,
Wait.
so he
So hold on. I have a question. Mario Tara Salazar. Do you feel free in a system, in this system? Do you feel free in a system that punishes people for just having a healthcare issue? Do you find it free where every single job that you go to, that entry level, is starvation wages, basically? And no matter what job you choose, it's pretty much all the same, crap wages all around. So you want to get a better job? Well, that requires a degree. Do you know what that requires? Tens of thousands of student debt in some cases. So you're not really free. You're just being perpetuated into you're turned into a hamster on a wheel. That's the majority of people, unfortunately. So yes, the idea that the current system that we live in offers freedom is kind of not true. I mean, like, I don't feel very free having to, be in a system where I don't really have that much choices, right? I don't.
Also had a spokesman named Hiawatha. They are both known to be the bringers of the law. Anyone who's ever had to read Longfellow's Song of Hiawatha in an English lit class, it's that Hiawatha. These guys are well known. The law of peace, along with the elder council traditions of the Lenape, the Cherokee, the Powhatans, the Creek, really most of the East Coast tribes, were well known throughout the original 13 British colonies. It was so well known, it was part of the inspiration for what would become the U.S. Constitution. Historian Charles L. Meade Jr. cites South
They're
Carolina's John Rutledge as an
socialistic.
example. Rutledge opened one committee meeting during the Second Continental Congress by reading from a 1520 treaty, itself quoting the Great Law. It began, "We, the people, to form a union, to establish peace, equality, and order." Rutledge commended the phrasing to his colleagues, and so, in some small part, the preamble of the new Constitution was based on the law of the land as it had been on the East Coast before the first white settlers arrived. Unlike what Voltaire or Engels would have one believe, it wasn't just a random assortment of traditions, it was a series of codified laws and policies that governed how people could behave toward one another. The wampum belt, commemorating that union,
Wait,
is now the flag
Stuka.
of the League. The 5 positions represent
Wait, this has always been the case.
the 5 founding tribes. This is precisely like the stars and stripes of the U.S. flag, representing the members and the original colonies. Similarly, that's why Penn cites the council as negotiating for land and property. The Lenape knew full well how Europeans understood property rights. They just didn't agree with it, which is why the negotiations took so long. You were haggling with the entire town. Which is why I say, the idea, the feminist critiques of Marxism that came later, bordered on insulting. I was being intentional. It's because of the Great Law of Peace. Its various rules, called articles, are numbered. I cite 2 key articles to make my point. The first is Article 37. There shall be 1 war chief from each nation, and their duties shall be to carry messages for their chiefs, and to take up arms in case of emergency. They shall not participate in the proceedings of the Council of the League, but shall watch its progress, and in case of an erroneous action by a chief, they shall receive the complaints of the people and convey the warning of the women to him. The second is Article 44. It states, the lineal descendants of the people of the 5 nations shall
But,
run in
like-
a female line. Women shall be considered the progenitors of the nation. They shall own the land and the soil. Men and women shall follow the status of the mother. So, representatives, directly answerable to
They
the people,
are-
who cannot act
well,
without
you
people's direct
don't-
permission. Leadership, who is beholden to the
Okay.
people collectively, but more importantly, to the women of their council specifically. Notice it doesn't say the advice of the women. It says the warnings of the women. Penn didn't say the old and middle-aged men sit in a half moon. He said the old and the middle-aged.
Which
Article
you're
44 does not
speculating on
say,
how the world
unless
should
her
work.
husband objects. It says women shall own the land. Period. Now, as an aside, the Seneca Falls Convention happened the same year the
Nothing.
Communist
So I mean, like, imagine thinking that, but not realizing that this system currently, unfortunately, doesn't offer that much better, right? I mean, it doesn't. I'm sorry.
Manifesto was published in 1848. It occurred in Seneca Falls, New York. It was organized by suffragette luminaries like Elizabeth Cady Stanton and Lucretia Mott, where they spoke passionately with abolitionists like Sojourner Truth and Frederick Douglass in favor of a woman's right to vote. Perhaps you see what I mean. As one scholar I read put it, an Iroquois woman attending that convention could be forgiven for finding it mildly
I was
insulting
talking
to
about,
suggest that she should demote herself to mere equality with a man.
Mario.
So, with feminist and anarchist critiques of Marx, the internal narrative went full circle. It's a response to Morgan and Diderot's intentional misreading of real tribes to create their pet theories. It's a debate over fanfic, satisfying to the purists maybe, but bordering on impenetrable for the casual audience. It becomes a redundant criticism, a bad third-hand copy of a second-hand story cribbed from another guy's notes, without acknowledgement. Now, imagine being
Yikes.
that Iroquoian woman, who isn't merely correcting the notes, but has to prove she existed at all, because a handful of European authors decided her character was too hard to write. The ignoring point here isn't the amount of evidence necessary to suggest that communism and socialism and anarchism aren't an original idea. It's the amount of evidence necessary simply to demonstrate Europe isn't the font of all wisdom and insight. To put
It's
it
all
bluntly,
good.
within leftist discourse informed by European anarchism and communism, overall left-leaning progressivism doesn't have a race and gender problem that needs to be addressed before it gets out of hand. European anarchism and communism is the problem. Take 2 handfuls of sugar, mix them in.
Capitalism. Are you conflating? Are you conflating capitalism with representative democracy? No, these two are not the same thing.
Into a dough, bake it. Now take the first handful of sugar back out. The bigotry isn't the icing, it's the cake. When I see left-leaning theorists and commenters lamenting how there are so few minority voices, I suspect it's because they don't realize the very language being used is already alienating to many of us. It's not a matter of phrasing or throwing around the word privilege. It's comprehensive, the very way the questions and answers are framed and stated. I want to say at this point, my intention here isn't to invalidate European socialism or communism or anarchism or the discussions which have grown up around them. Those who are embedded within systems those arguments were responding to still have merit within those systems, which is why I have no interest in somehow correcting those arguments by injecting the original tribal practices back in at this late date. They simply can't function as a valid political response within existing government structures, which are themselves mostly European-derived. Such an argument would be a bit like trying to fix a tire while the car is still moving. Plus, there were plenty of tribes who followed other modes. There's no winner here. Instead, I wanted to demonstrate an aspect of cultural erasure that is rarely, if ever, discussed in more left-leaning circles. I'm not going to speculate why, though I have my own theories. I only mean to show that it occurred, and it needs to be considered before moving forward. More importantly, this isn't simply giving credit where it's due. I'm not interested in claiming natives should get the copyright to Karl Marx, or the US flag, or the US Constitution. Any astute modern radical could easily argue that current issues are so distant from their founders that authorial intent is largely irrelevant. That might even be true, but it presumes the native side has not also progressed, and that we are not also confronting those same issues in our own way. We're not museum exhibits. We've moved on from who we were when Penn was writing his letters 4 centuries ago. We didn't simply write those concepts off as lost goods, which means this isn't merely about the past. It contributes directly to modern debate and discourse, erasure, and decolonization. Just as an example, the Iroquois League and Lenape Council House have centuries behind them. They withstood wars, genocidal settlers, expansionist empires, international slavers. Communist and socialist countries today are considered well-worn if they manage a few decades. It's time the European school needs to give up its tradition of overt erasure and get back to the real roots to see how native successes maintained themselves for so long. One need look no further than to how the water protectors and monarchia are discussed in the US versus how Occupy Wall Street was discussed. It even works as a better critique of capitalism. The first thing any capitalist throws out is how successful they are. They fault communism and anarchism strictly on life expectancy, and yet the Lenape and the Iroquois prove they need a better argument. This is about raising the level of debate, not just a gotcha for 4chan edgelords. But that also means you can't just pull a Morgan. Indigenous populations are not a database to mine for inspiration. We're peoples with histories, cultures, and languages that are integral to our worldviews. Histories we've maintained and perpetuated despite overt efforts to the contrary. Talk with us, not at us, definitely not over us. This isn't about retooling our perspectives to more properly shoehorn them into existing European notions. It's about genuine curiosity and honesty and self-reflection. Now, if you're looking for text recommendations, I'll suggest a few here and put them in the summary. Start with The Great Law of Peace. Get communism and socialism theory where it should be gotten, from the source. It's not a short read. It's not an overly long one either. Following that, I suggest a more accurate historic account of native and settler relations and realities. A good one would be 1491, New Revelations of the Americas Before Columbus by Charles Mann. Don't fall into the trap of allowing those works to justify some newfound sense of righteousness, or worse, white guilt. For those of us who've been on this side for a while, we would consider these starter texts. Coming at us with newfound information, it's going to look like a try-hard. Plus, guilt can far too easily turn to anger and zealotry. Absorb what they have to say. Then, when you're ready, 2 more texts. Columbus and Other Cannibals by Jack Forbes for some deep history and some worldview, and then Anarchism in Latin America, edited by Carlos Rama and Angel Capelletti for more recent history. I'm keeping the list short because I don't want to overwhelm anyone. It's hard to truly shift one's perspective. Even harder when someone's already had to shift themselves once before, away from the more common messages of American exceptionalism, or in fact Western exceptionalism, and the constant drone of subliminal manifest destiny that even classical Marxism and anarchism perpetuated. Give yourself time and be good to each other. If you've enjoyed my little paw print on the YouTubes, please like my video and maybe even subscribe to my channel so you're more likely to see my next update. Also, if you really like this, check out my Patreon listed below and toss a few dollars my way to request something you'd like to see discussed.
All right. Very good video. I enjoyed this one. So, really quickly, to address, is it Michael? I can't remember. Mario. Thank you so much. I really much enjoyed watching it again. No problem. Hey, listen, what's happening? Anyways, Mario, don't you think that we could have probably a better system? Don't you think that maybe things like, for example, if you are a hard worker who literally works 40 plus hours a week, don't you think you maybe should have some kind of say in your work area, in your work environment? Don't you think that you should probably have some type of say in what happens to you if you're producing so much? Don't you think that you deserve some kind of voice for your particular job or area? What about owning parts of your what about owning parts of your labor? Like thinking along the lines of like maybe worker co-ops. So that's where I kind of drew up the parody of democratic capitalism, because it's like markets, right? But like democratically done, right? Since you claim that you like democracy, you claim that you like representative democracy, Why don't you have representation in the places that you work? You should have. Maybe expand unions. How about that? Gotta go chill some Republicans. I mean, that seems to be a good place, don't you think? A good place to start? Having things like, having things like worker co-ops, having things like unions. Because, I mean, honestly, only, 10% of the workforce is unionized? You can do a couple of things: more money in life, improve your skills and knowledge. Yeah, to get in more debt and get stuck in a hamster wheel. Thanks for the follow, PDZ. And if your currently work doesn't pay, you have the freedom to leave. Yeah, true. You have the freedom to leave, absolutely, to another job that also pays you crap. Like, do you see where the problems are? And even then, those type of jobs are still jobs. Shouldn't they have living wages anyways? Jesus. Yeah, we're going in circles. Anyway, folks, it is 11:26. I gotta get going. Thank you guys so much for stopping by. I really appreciate all of you guys hanging out here. Thank you guys for the massive, massive love today. Wow, I can't even begin to thank you guys for hanging out here. Thank you so much. I appreciate all of that. Thank you, Tale of Two Rabbits, for that awesome video. Later, man. Thank you so much for stopping by, Grom. Hey, Mono. Thank you guys. I really appreciate it. Please, if you like the channel, just smack the follow button. Just smack the follow button and subscribe to the YouTube. It really does help us out. I will be back tomorrow, 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. doing news and politics. As always, great to find you. Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you for the raids. Thank you for all the subscriptions. Oh my goodness. I really appreciate all the love. As always, please take care of each other. Please stay safe. I love you all, and I hope to see you guys in the next stream. See ya! Worker co-ops are cool, okay? There should be more of them. That should be the norm. Alright, folks. Let's head on over to Ben's channel. Let's head on over in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Here we go.